Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Next month, Germans will go to polling stations to choose their new parliament. The election campaign is gaining momentum with Elon Musk adding more fuel to the already heated debate over the future of Bundesrepublik. To discuss possible scenarios for Germany, we're joined by Professor Daniela Schwarzer, Executive Board Member at Bertelsmann Stiftung. Good evening.
Good evening from Berlin.
So, what the recent polls in Berlin tell us today about the German political stage, and is there a possibility, 1 month ahead of the elections, that one of the major parties will gain much advantage over its adversaries?
Well, currently the clear leader is the Christian Democratic Party led by Friedrich Merz, who wants to be the next German chancellor. They are polling at around 30%. And then next to CDU is the far right with about 20%. Of course, this varies by the day. And then the two next parties are first the Social Democrats and then the Greens, one at about 16%, the other at about 14%. So it's very clear that while the polling data may change over time, there are still 4 weeks to go. But Germany will once again have a coalition government, which is very usual for our country. But the question really is whether the Christian Democrats will need one or maybe two parties to shape a government.
Right. The question here is how solidified is the support for respective parties, and whether one of them has some card up the sleeve, to work on the remainder of the campaign.
So it has looked pretty stable over the past weeks, but we know from the last election less than 4 years ago that there can be movement in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So we don't really know where the Social Democrats and the Greens and, of course, the far right will land. It is pretty sure that the Christian Democrats will be the largest party, but they can also lose or win a few percentage points. There's always some volatility in the last few weeks, and as you have said, it's still 4 weeks to go. Now, you asked whether there's something that anyone may have up their sleeve. What we see at the moment is that this election is really characterized by the attempt to set long-term issues. All parties focus on socio-economic issues and Germans' concerns after high inflation over the past years and the real feeling that they need more in their purses to live a good life, so that the question of taxes and all of these socio-economic aspects play an important role. Also, the question of social cohesion within our society. But right now, the migration topic is also very hot, also because there was an attack by a person from Afghanistan 2 days ago, killing a child and also killing an adult who wanted to rescue the child. And of course, this fueled again the debate over illegal immigration, which was the case of this particular person who shouldn't have been in Germany when this happened.
Before we talk about immigration and the far right, I'd like to ask you about, can we already speculate about the future shape of the German government? Who will get what ministry?
That is too early to say, also because we simply don't know whether there will be 2 or 3 parties in the coalition. And if there are 3, that will of course mean that the ministries will be divided between 3 parties. And it's so very hard to forecast. If I had to make a bet today, I would say the German chancellor will probably be Friedrich Merz, but how the ministries will be distributed always follows many logics. One is, of course, the parties in the coalition, but then there's also an attempt to have a good representation of the various German regions, and then also some gender balance. So this really very often, until the end, changes while already coalition negotiations are taking place. So it's very, very hard to say anything about this today. It would be premature.
Right. We already touched upon the topic of migration. How are other parties responding to AfD leading the anti-migrant sentiments in Germany? Because, we know that as well as the left, as well as the centre, of the political stage are trying to keep up the pace made by AfD?
Well, hardly any party can right now avoid the issue. And just tonight, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who is the lead candidate for the Social Democrats, he went on TV and discussed the matter and what has happened in Germany over the past few days. So there's a very clear position on the Social Democratic side saying we need to control illegal immigration, but we stick to the right of asylum. And we respect that people need help and need to come to our country. Friedrich Merz, the Christian Democrat, has taken an initiative after the recent developments, trying to bring an initiative to Parliament this coming week, where he takes a very harsh stance. But while he was criticized for leaning towards AfD with that, interestingly, the wording of that motion, which he's bringing to Parliament, starts out by saying that the Christian Democrats don't want to cooperate with the far right on this matter, and they invite the other parties. This is obviously still a draft document, which reads refinement, but it shows you something very important, and that is that the Christian Democrats at this point are not open to any cooperation with the far right. And this is a question that is, of course, always asked, because we see some countries like Austria most recently where the far right manages to get into government. And so far in Germany, all moderate parties have said that they would not want to form a coalition with the far right.
Mm-hmm. Now, Elon Musk, AfD is raising much controversy. He's talking not only about the future of Germany, but also about its past. And Elon Musk, as I mentioned in the very beginning, adds fuel to this dispute. Now I'd like us to listen to former Polish ambassador to Germany commenting on Elon Musk's words spoken over the weekend. Let's give it a listen.
In this particular moment, in the pre-election time, he can stick a kind of a needle in the back of Germans saying, guys, you should be less maybe official, less or more flexible, whereas you too stiff. But instead of saying that with plain words, he used comparisons which have very bad and negative meaning, at least in the hearts and minds of great majority of Europeans, but also in Germany, because we have to remember that thanks to Americans, after Second World War, the new generation of German citizens have changed their minds what concerns the consequences of this dramatic 20th century where Germany played this dramatic and negative role.
So just to remind our viewers, Elon Musk has said that Germans should move beyond their past guilt. Now, is this sentiment shared by the majority of far-right voters to rewrite Germany's history?
That is hard for me to judge. There are some within the party who clearly strike that kind of tone. However, the party also has, even in its leadership, people who really still want to draw a line and don't want to move that far to the right. But it definitely does not strike a chord with the German public. And Elon Musk has really interfered in an unduly way in our domestic election campaign, which very many people have criticized. And of course, his recommendation, as I dare say, for Germans not to worry about their past too much is, of course, completely unacceptable. There's so much being done in Germany to come to grips with our past, and there's a lot of consciousness what we have in terms of responsibility, not only for our past, but towards our European future. So I would say that most Germans who see Elon Musk intervene in that way find it not only illegitimate to intervene in an election campaign that way, but in particular on the topics he has chosen. This is really nothing Germany can put up with and will accept.
But then, on the other hand, could Elon Musk be considered to be sort of a spokesperson for Donald Trump in Germany, and therefore could he sway, large parts of the electorate to to vote for AfD in an attempt to have good relations with the new US administration.
Well, we absolutely do need good relations as Europeans with the United States. That's true for Germany, that's true for Poland, for the Baltic states, for almost anyone in the European Union. But for those who see that there's such a security threat emanating from Russia, it is obvious that we need to be good partners to the United States within NATO and also in economic terms. But of course, with this administration, there's a lot of uncertainty. And the interesting thing will be Elon Musk, as you have mentioned, he has sided with AfD, which is seen as a party which has ties with Russia and which basically supports more the Russian view than the Ukrainian view in the current war that Russia is waging on Ukraine. And that is going to be a very interesting question, whether Elon Musk's relationship with AfD, as you suggested, may represent Trump's perspective. I don't see evidence right now that Donald Trump has taken that same position. So we have to see what happens. But what is very clear now is that Europeans have to work more closely together on defense, on economic issues, and the Polish EU presidency that started in January this year has a very important role to play. And I hope the next German government will be operational soon to put those efforts into work to strengthen defense in Europe and also to deepen the single market and make Europe as such a stronger power in the world.
But then on the other hand, as we already stated, in case of migration, the far right has somehow changed the narrative of the whole political class in Germany. Now, could the issue of Ukraine, which is also, gaining much supporters for AfD, could it also be a game changer during these elections? And how will Ukraine be perceived after the elections? Maybe the centre or the left will rather look to steal some voters from AfD by giving less to Ukraine. What do you think?
Well, first of all, on migration, AfD hasn't changed the whole of the German debate, and not all parties have changed their position. As I said earlier, the Social Democrats absolutely emphasize the right to asylum, as do the Greens, and also the Christian Democrats wouldn't deny that. The tone is mostly changed on illegal immigration and sending people home. So I do think we need to make a difference between asylum, illegal immigration, and then also the immigration which we need as an economic player. Germany needs immigration for demographic reasons as well. On Ukraine, it's interesting to see how firmly the Christian Democrat candidate Friedrich Merz stands on the need to support Ukraine. There is a broad recognition in the Christian Democratic Party with the Greens and also the Social Democrats that it is not only a question of helping Ukraine protect its sovereignty, but really that this is going to the heart of European security, how the war may be ended, and that Ukraine needs support until some kind of deal can be negotiated between Ukraine and Russia that is acceptable to Ukraine. So right now, opinion polls in Germany over 3 years now, it's very soon the third anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. Public opinion is pretty robust. We have players in our electoral campaign who try to take a pro-Russian stance and suggest there can be an easy peace deal made and that weapons to Ukraine mean more war and not peace. But this is really a rhetoric which is very much turned around, and people do recognize, in the majority at least, that something really big is at stake here. It is Ukraine as a sovereign country, it is Ukraine as a democracy, and it is also the question how Europe is able to protect its own interests and its neighboring countries. And now we have talked about the election of Donald Trump and the partnership with the US. This is precisely why, because of this importance of stability and peace on our continent, that Europeans need to contribute more to NATO and make sure that the security alliance with the US holds, but that will require us to do more in our joint interest with the US. And in that scenario, I think we can very well manage a sustained support for Ukraine. And interestingly, the candidates in the electoral campaign who stand with Ukraine, they don't shy away from saying this loud and clear.
Professor Daniela Schwarzer, Executive Board Member at Bertelsmann Stiftung, was our guest tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more here on TVP World.